I learned this dish off a Moroccan chef that I used to work for called Nimrod, and it's been a staple of mine ever since. But then when going vegan, I didn't make it for a few years because of the eggs, so I was very, very happy to find the mozzarella replacement. So about 2 tins worth. Now when you're using fresh tomatoes, there's more moisture in there because they haven't been cooked down at all, which is why I'm starting this dish first, so that it's got plenty of time to reduce and thicken up. This big guy in there. Huge. Okay, so they're sweated down. I'm going to add in those beautiful fresh tomatoes. How's that going? Yeah. Okay, now the interesting thing about shakshuka is that traditionally it's actually quite sweet. So as I say, I was taught this originally by a proper Moroccan chef. I'm pretty sure he was born in Israel. He really knows his stuff, and so the traditional way is really actually to balance this with some sugar. So I'm using brown sugar, and it's 3 to 1. So about 3 teaspoons, 3 good pinches of salt, and 1 of sugar. So that 3 to 1 ratio is really the key to shakshuka. It's what separates it from just a normal Italian tomato sauce or just a more bland tomato sauce. It's what makes it shakshuka, is the spices and this 3 to 1 ratio. So that's really important. Let's crank this up. So plenty in there, and some salt. Now, we also need to cut up these capsicums. So I'm using 2. I'm being very, very rough here to get them in for you, but you can take more time at home. This little knife is a very handy thing, if you can get one of those. So fairly small dices, so that we can cook it all down. But with this sauce, like with many things that have spices, like curries and things, the longer you cook them, the better. So we're gonna do a quick version today, but if you could leave this overnight and eat it the next day, or cook it slowly for 5 hours, you're gonna be enjoying it even more. One more in there. Capsicums are so naturally sweet, they really do complement this dish well. Okay, thank you. So now the spices for shakshuka are pretty standard, cumin and coriander. So they're going to go in now as well. Pretty generous, a good heaped teaspoon of each. I like to use whole cumin. I didn't have that today, but if you do have whole cumin, feel free to use that. And some chilies. Now I'm using fresh because I have them on the vine, but if you just want to use crushed chili or whatever, go for it. The whole thing about vegan food, or really any food, is just making it work for you. So, you don't have to be religious with things, make it work. Just use what you've got if you can. I am finely chopping them because I don't want a huge chunk of chili, obviously. And they're quite hot, so about 1.5 I put in there. Okay, I'm also going to add 1 tin of kidney beans. This is optional, so if you want a more heavier, more of a winter version of this dish, I would add a tin of black beans or kidney beans or any kind of legume, but that would be probably the 2 best options. However, in summer, if you want a lighter version, you could leave them out. So it's still up to you. If you want more of a filling, protein-rich, it's an option, but just a bit more substance in there with those. So really, that just needs to simmer down now, and then we're going to add this warrigal green a little bit closer to the end, and that's also when the mozzarella will go in. So I hope this little electric thing can do the job for us. So we'll just pop the lid on, thank you, and let it do its thing. Alright, let's get some pasta in there. Just over here. Okay, do you want to maybe just move close? Thank you. So the next dish we're going to do is one of my favourite meals, and it's actually quite unique, I've been making it for about 10 years now. And it is actually a pasta dish that uses figs as the sauce. So I know it sounds surprising, but it's actually amazing. And the way to help understand that is if you think fig and cheese before you're plant-based, or maybe you're not, but fig and cheese is a great combination. And that is actually the kind of essence of this dish. We've got salty, savoury, nutritional yeast, those sort of cheesy flavours with the figs as the sauce. So together you get that same lovely sweet, salty combination. And the basil, chilli, garlic and lemon really help to balance it out, and it's just delicious. And a great way to use seasonal figs, because when figs are in season there's obviously buckets of them, and it's quite important to have ways like this to get a lot used. We don't waste any. So I'm using angel hair pasta today. It is one of my favourite pastas because it's quite delicate, but also it's the quickest to cook because it's so thin. So I'm just using a smaller pot than I'd like to because of our setup here, but obviously if you had a nice big pasta pot, I'd recommend that. So, where's our sound guy? You there, mate? Got a bit of feedback. So, I'm going to let that soften up, and as I say, because it's angel hair, it shouldn't take too long. Okay. So for the fig pasta, it's actually very simple, which is why I love it. It's simply figs, obviously, garlic, lemon zest, chili, basil, nutritional yeast, and salt and olive oil, obviously, and then on top some pine nuts. So it's the sort of thing you can throw together on a summer's evening really quite easily. So I'm just going to quickly dice up these garlics. So I like to use like a whole bowl of garlic in this, to serve about 4. It really just grounds the dish and makes it so tasty. So there's roughly a bowl here, probably 5 to 7 cloves. And now this is a bit of a problem. We don't have enough hot plates, because that didn't cook in time. Right, it's a good challenge. We're going to have to wait for that pasta to cook, because there's nothing else we can do. Luckily it's angel hair, which I would say is very, very quick. Okay, let's put a lid on. Impromptu lids, pots will do. Let's get everything else prepped in the meantime. Okay, so the great thing about this sauce is that you can basically throw it in all together. So very, very easy. And I promise this is worth a try. I know it sounds a little bit funky, fig pasta, fig savoury, but please give it a crack and you'll be really pleasantly surprised. So I'm just going to put it all into here. So lots of finely chopped garlic. And to our figs, now any variety of fig will work with this, whatever you can find. I like to forage for figs. Figs are actually abundant if you really look for them. They're in abandoned house blocks, they're in backyards that no one visits anymore, they're even in parklands. You can actually find figs everywhere, and it's those sort of resources that we really need to utilise, because they're there to be eaten and they're a resource, so don't be afraid to just pick some figs wherever you find them. And it is hard to find them in supermarkets anyway, because they don't store well, they don't travel well because they're so soft and delicate. So get yourself some figs one way or another. Jump a fence if you have to, and just give them a nice rough chop and chuck them in. So I'm quartering them. It's nice to have a little bit of texture, but because they're so high in water content, as they simmer down, they will become a sauce very quickly. So yeah, it's up to you. I'm probably putting about nearly a kilo in here of figs. These are Turkish brown figs, but as I say, the green skin variety, they all work really well. Thank you, darling. Sure. Okay, that's probably enough, but I want you to all have a taste, so make sure there's maybe a few more in there. Okay, now I've got a nice lemon here. With your lemons, when you're buying lemons, if you have to buy lemons, you know what, lemons are actually very, very much like figs. They grow in most backyards. There's often abandoned ones in abandoned blocks and things like that. So, because if you buy them, they're nearly always from America. Same with most citrus, oranges included, and that's just total madness. So really try and find yourself some local lemons, and when you do, just stock up. They last for ages. So, you know, if you find a tree, grab them. And even when they fall on the ground, it's totally fine to eat them then. So I'm going to put a whole lemon zest in here. Now when you're zesting any citrus, the white pith is really, really bitter. I'm going to avoid that. So instead of grinding on one spot for quite a few times and you're going to get that pith in, I'm going to keep moving. So sort of one or two turn, you know, I'm going to avoid that pith if possible. But, you know, we don't need to be too fancy. Just a little trick. Okay. Now a little chili. These are quite hot, so I'm just going to put one in. Nice and fine. Again, crushed chili will be fine here. Now, whilst we're on the note of pasta, I think it's quite an important time to talk about, it's quite a good dish to really bring out the subject of cheese, because obviously most of us have grown up or are used to having cheese with pasta, and it is not necessary if we know how to treat our pasta. So when you think about cheese, it is fundamentally fat and salt. It's what cheese is. Now, we can replace those two elements really easily with olive oil and salt in the cooking process. So after the pasta's cooked and strained, we're going to dress it with salt and olive oil. And that way, you really, really miss the cheese so much less in the end product, and it just makes it so much more luxurious and delicious. So it's a really good way to help you not miss cheese as much. And the main thing is just season properly. You know, I've made cheese before I was vegan. I can tell you that it is buckets of salt. I mean, it would go off if it wasn't full of salt. So if you season properly, you will miss cheese far, far less, and that's the goal, isn't it? We don't want to eat cheese. So season well and be generous with your olive oil to make up for the fat element, and you'll be much more happy. How's that pasta going? Let's have a little taste. I love that about angel hair. It's so quick. Do you want a taste? Tell me if it's ready. Al dente? Yep, great. Quick strain. Okay. So what I've done there is I've just strained that off back into the same pot it cooked in, and this is when the olive oil and salt goes on. Okay, so some good extra virgin and a good pinch of salt. And that's dressing your pasta. Now that's an Italian thing, and it's a shame it didn't become standard here because, yeah, as I say, makes up for a lot. Okay, it also helps keep the pasta separate, so as it's cooling, it's not going to cling together and get gluggy either. So that's a really good tip. Okay, so that's ready to go. Now we're going to put another pan on here, if that'll fit, this little thing. Just. And again, of course, everything starts with a good olive oil. Okay, so we've got our base here for this pasta sauce. So fig pasta sauce, figs, lemon zest, garlic and chili. That's our base. Okay, simple 4 ingredients. And just when that pan gets a little bit hotter, we'll add that. And then as it cooks, I'm going to add some fresh basil leaves. This is probably the only thing that you can't really get away with in a powdered form. I do not use dried basil, it's just not the same, but up to you. So I'm just taking the stalks off. Again, very rough and random with it, just however makes it easy for you and doable, that's fine. Now, one thing with basil is if you chop it, it bruises very, very easily. So the best way to treat basil is actually just to rip it with your hands, and it'll bruise far, far less then. So that's me ready to go in a moment. This is very quick, so those figs will only take 5 minutes to cook into a sauce. I love to be very generous with the basil, so a good couple of handfuls there. Okay, let's get those in. Sure. Well, should we just give a little wipe when I get those cumin and coriander flavours in there? Thank you. I've actually got this one too. It's a bit small, but I'll do it. Okay. So on top of the pasta, I'm going to put some pine nuts, which are just slightly dry roasted. Obviously, that's just 1 minute in a dry pan, no oil, and that's going to be ready to go. Very easy, really worth a try. Try it quickly because figs are not going to be in season for much longer. So maybe another month you've got to give it a crack, so please do that. Okay, you're actually going quite well for time. I didn't want to run out of time for you, so all right. Okay, so I think we can actually move on to our dessert, which is surprising for 12. So, I'll grab this. Cool, thank you. So for the dessert, who's got Instagram here? Fantastic. Why don't you all grab it out, and at the very, very top post, which I posted this morning, is the dessert. So that way you can see the finished product, you can see the recipe. It's going to help you get a grip of what we're doing there. It's very easy anyway. I don't think you're really going to struggle with that at all, but just so you've got a visual for the end product. So olive wood vegan is what we're searching for. By the way, olive wood vegan stands for holding out an olive branch. So it's one of my favourite sayings, because I think if we all held out olive branches of peace and resolution whenever we could, obviously we'd all have really happy, peaceful lives, and that would make a peaceful world. But the olive branch has been such a symbol of peace throughout history in Greek mythology and so far back, and obviously veganism is the ultimate symbol of peace because it's non-violence. And if we start with peace on the table, that's the only chance we have at creating peace in the world. So that's where olive wood vegan comes from, the name, just a little bit of, in case you're wondering. A lot of people think that my name is Olive, which I would love because Olive is my favourite name, but that's not the case. My name is not Olive Wood, as much as I'd love it to be. It stands for holding out an olive branch. So that's that little bit of background. So has everyone found the passion fruit cups? And if you don't find it now, you can always refer back to the website another time. Now, the great thing about my website is that in the recipe section, there's a search button. So if you've got any seasonal produce that you want to use up, you can go to that section and actually search based on your ingredient you want to use. So that's really, really useful. I'm trying to reduce waste. I'm trying to get everyone really utilising the food that we buy and grow. So if you've got half a cabbage and you think, what the hell am I going to do with this whole half a cabbage? Just type in cabbage and all these options are going to come up. And the same goes for anything you might have hanging in the back of the fridge going a bit funky. What am I going to do with it? You can check that out. So please feel free to utilise that resource. Now, okay, so let's move on to the dessert. Again, I'm going to need to multi-purpose these utensils. I'll just give this a quick wipe. Yeah, cool. All right. Working with what we've got here. Okay, so there's 3 elements of this dish, and they are the lovely cheesecake style filling, which I've pre-made here. We are going to make some. This is delicious. This is absolutely delicious. So I think passion fruit, because it's so acidic, putting it with something so creamy is really the ultimate thing to do, because that's the perfect balance in the mouth of that really rich, and with the acid as well cutting through that richness. And that's what really creates a really delicious thing in your mouth, is when there's contrast. So that's what we're always trying to create. We're striving for contrast in food. And on the note of contrast, we've got crumbs of biscuits here. So we've got the crunch, the creaminess, the acid. So as much as we can get going on in one mouthful at a time is going to be the best. So this is very, very easy as well. I've tried to make these recipes as easy as possible for you. So basically it's cream cheese. Now I'm using Cheese, this brand here, Cheese, there's the lid so you can see it. This one here, I'm sure some of you have had it before, but it really is the best one I've found. But I think there's some other brands now, and you're welcome to use whatever you can find. I've also got some coconut yogurt. If anyone hasn't had this Community Cove brand, it's very, very good. A lot of coconut yogurts are bound together with things like carrageenan and gum, and which, you know, at least it's natural. It's not some bizarre 1972 thing, but at least it's natural. But this has just actually got more coconut in it in the first place. It's much thicker and richer, and that's obviously what we want in a yogurt. We want thick and rich. So yogurt and cream cheese are the base. And the reason I've done that is instead of using 100% cream cheese is because this is quite expensive. It's only $7, okay? So to make it more economical for a start, if we use coconut, it's quite affordable. We're going to cut that price down. Also, it makes it lighter. You know, when you have a piece of cheesecake, it's like, wow, I could go to sleep now. It's really heavy food. And when you've got a half yogurt, it's much lighter. And the idea of this dessert is for it to be a nice summery, sort of fresh dessert. So that lightens it up as well, and probably makes it a bit healthier as well. So quite a few benefits of blending those two things together there. I'm going to, as I said about healthy, going to add quite a bit of icing sugar. Yin and yang, everybody, that's what it's all about, yin and yang. It is a dessert, and you know what, desserts are sweets. So we've got such healthy mains, and that's the thing, you know, we're eating so many plants, we can't go wrong. I think we can treat ourselves to a bit of proper dessert every now and again, such as this. I'm going to use the vanilla bean paste. Obviously this is a commercial gigantic one, but you know, whatever vanilla you can get. I like to use the paste because then I can control the liquid content in the dish. So if I'm using the essence, that's a whole teaspoon more water, effectively, more liquid. So if you want to keep control of the thickness of something, you've got more chance of doing that with a paste. Okay, that's basically it, pretty simple. The curd also, this is, I didn't think I'd have time to make each step for you today, so we're going to just do the base, but as I say, the whole recipe is on the Instagram, top of the page, you can find it if you want to go home and make it. But the curd is very simple. It's simply passion fruit, obviously scooped out, some icing sugar, some lemon juice, and corn flour. So very, very basic. You know, traditional lemon curds or passion fruit curds use egg yolk. And I think what we can learn from this curd is something that can be applied to so much vegan food, and that's that we can replace traditionally used fats, such as butter and egg yolk, by using starch. Now that's why, one of the many reasons it's so easy to lose weight on a vegan diet, because you are, instead of using fat to thicken things, you're using starch, and starch obviously is not fat, so it's much lighter and healthier, much healthier as well. So simply corn flour has made that as thick as it is. You know, it's not going anywhere. It's a nice thick curd. Okay, so simply a couple of tablespoons of corn flour. Okay, so let's just do this dessert while that's all doing its thing. Let's just check that sugar isn't sticking, because I can see some steam coming out the bottom there. Yeah, let's take the lid off now. That's some of that juice. Okay, so I just took the lid off there to, let's keep it cracking because, yeah, I want you guys to taste it. So lid off, high temperature is going to help get rid of some of that moisture. So yeah, let it evaporate off. Okay, so into a food processor. That's how easy this dessert is. Food processor, cream cheese. Yogurt. So 1 pack of cream cheese, you know, I don't know. I do things by feel. The proper recipe is there. If you want to refer to numbers, check out the recipe, but I don't know, half a cup of yogurt, half a cup of icing sugar, and let's get lots of lemon in. I love this to be very, very tangy. It makes it so much more refreshing than if it's just, you know, really sweet. So a whole lemon zest. And a whole juice of that lemon as well. If you have something called orange essence in your pantry, which I know you may or anyone heard of used orange essence before? Great, yeah. So it's a beautiful thing to have, great to throw into chocolate cakes, and you've probably done that, or into chocolate mousse, or anything you want to add that little bit of a citrus note to. But that is also quite delicious in this, because even though we've got the lemon, orange is different to lemon, and it will create another layer of citrus, which makes the dessert a bit more complex and delicious. But honestly, that's just a side note, really no pressure at all. But if you happen to see orange essence in a gourmet food shop, I'd recommend having some. And that's where a little splash of this would come in, of that into this, sorry. Okay, we've got most of that off there. Off, don't waste any. Okay, I'm going to cut this lemon in half and hope it's a juicy one. Yep. And give it a good squeeze in this ancient contraction. think it was my grandma's. I actually just like to get my hands into lemons to get the most out of them. Often I just fingers in, and that's where that is the way to just not waste any at all. Just doing this with your hands, trying to get every last bit out. But I'll do it the proper way. A bit of both. Okay, juice in. So the reason that this is in a cup really is because to have that much lemon in there, it is going to loosen the mix up radically. So it's going to be a bit more of a sauce. However, when you do set it in the fridge overnight, it will become very scoopable in a nice thick way. But yeah, it does make it a lot easier to put it in a cup instead of serving it as a cake because it takes the pressure off. You're not going to have any fear of it coming out, and when we are making it vegan, it is harder to set it because there's no eggs. Okay, so in a traditional baked cheesecake, you'd have tons of eggs in there, and that's what would hold it together. So this is a sort of tricky way to get around the egg and the heaviness of buckets of cream cheese, is just to serve it in a cup. It's a nice, safe option. So just get this lemon juice off. Okay, a little squeeze of vanilla. So simply 4 ingredients, really. Very, very simple. And that is going to have a blend. Where's my lid? Here it is. Okay. Is it even on? It is so slow. Okay, very easy. Let's have a little taste. Running out of utensils. I'm going to use my fingers. I'm going to wash them after I just washed them, just as the disclaimer. That's perfect, yeah. Nice, and the sweetness is there, but it's not, whoa, it's not too sweet. Plenty of lemon in there for the acid, so that's fine. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to serve these in some cups. Now, it's up to you, because obviously this is a personal thing, but who here is in a couple or a friend that you love so much you wouldn't mind sharing a spoon with? Okay, a few, good, because I'd like you to all have a taste, but I've only got 4 cups, and we're going to have to share it around a bit, so we'll find a way. But if you were serving this at home, these cups might be a bit big. So when the image on Instagram that you would have seen is in some much more little, beautiful little jars, and they're ideal. I've only got 2 of them, they're quite hard to find, but a shot glass could be quite good. You know, be inventive, or even a little mustard jar, a recycled mustard jar would work, you know. So get creative with it. I'm just going to use these today for ease, but you could be up to you with what you'd like to use to serve them. But basically we're going to create 3 layers. So starting with our crumb. Now I'll just do a bit of explaining about this crumb. So I make my own biscuit, and then I just simply put it in the same food processor we did that in, obviously. And that biscuit is simply flour, oats, really yesterday, coconut, pinch of salt, sugar and butter, and then pressed into baking trays. So basically a giant biscuit, and then that giant biscuit goes into the food processor, it becomes crumbs. If you can't be bothered to make your own biscuit, just buy some vegan biscuits. Some Arnott's biscuits are accidentally vegan. Ginger nuts are one. So just read the ingredients. I mean, a lot of them have milk powder, what doesn't? But if you can find ones that don't have milk powder, you could just simply put them in a food processor. But as I say, making your own biscuit base is very easy, and the recipe is on the Instagram and website. So feel free to do that. So, thank you. I'm going to put a nice layer of this biscuit base in each jar. Okay, one more. This is where maths comes in, which is my weakness, but if you can get some rule of thirds going, that would be ideal. But we can just be rough with it for today. Roughly, would be a sixth, it's being 2 layers, right? So a sixth of the cup, is that right? would be biscuit base, okay? I'm just going to use this pre-made one because this is a bit more set. This has been in the fridge. It unfortunately has warmed up in the time we've been here, but it's a little bit more set than that one, okay? So, a little layer of that. Oh, that's good. So thick it's not pouring. Excellent. That's what we want. I'll get the spoon. You can see the beautiful vanilla beans there popping through. It's lovely. That's the good thing about paste as well. You get that visual side of things. Something like that. Okay, and then we're going to go in with our curd. So as I say, this is simply passion fruit, corn flour, sugar, lemon juice. Very simple. In a saucepan, it'll thicken up in no time. Smells amazing. Spread that around. So obviously if you were making this for a dinner party, which is sort of what I've hope that you'll do, or for yourself or whatever, you obviously might want to be less rushy and really make these look perfect and but today I'm just getting it done for you, okay? So excuse the the sort of rusticness, all right? It takes a bit of time to make things perfect. Okay, just put it around. Is that even, I don't know if this one's working. This is just so slow, it's pretty tragic. Maybe let's swap them, because that's on the way now. Let's do that. Cool. Thank you, lovely. Great. Okay, is that yeah, cool. Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right. Okay, and repeat. So, biscuit crumb. Don't have enough things. Let's do it this way. So you can see how easy this would be as a dessert if you prepped it the day before, and then on the day of your dinner party, you can just throw this together half an hour before they arrive, or if you're more prepared, a few hours before and put it in the fridge. But basically, it makes it doable by doing it this way. It's just quite easy, Okay, so okay, and just finishing off with a little blob of our curd. Such a hot day, it'll be really lovely right now, nice and refreshing. Please do, and please share and tag me. I'd love to share this on to the rest of the Olivewood community. All right. Okay, now, that little spoon again. Thank you. I'm just going to swirl that through lightly. Okay, and a little paper towel just to clean off this edge here. Okay, and we've popped them in the fridge for even an hour, but longer the better. They'll be nice and firm and ready to go. We're going to eat them as is today, which will be fine as well. But yeah, that's the dessert. So passion fruit cheesecake cups, no dairy, no eggs, easy, okay? So we'll save that for later. Now, how's our shakshuka going? Okay, so this is nearly ready for me to put the eggs, the mozzarella eggs in. So let's do that now. So that sauce has reduced down. Look, preferably I would have left it a lot longer, but for the purposes of today, we're just going to skip through. And so, let's get this mozzarella. So this mozzarella, if you scroll right down my Instagram, it will be there, but probably best to go to the website, www.olivewoodvegan.com, and in that recipe search icon that I mentioned before, just search mozzarella. And there you will find the recipe. Now, it really is a great recipe to have, because if you can make your own mozzarella, fantastic thing at pizza night, fantastic if you want to chop some through a pasta bake, fantastic for so many things. It's quite easy. It's actually cultured, because I mix some coconut yogurt through the cashews, and then I leave it for 24 hours on the bench so that it actually gets that probiotic culture through the cashews. So it's actually a proper fermented cheese, really. Okay, so I'm going to create a little well around the dish, so maybe 6, so just one at a time, and I just pop that in there into that hole I just made in the sauce. Put on there. Yeah. Yes, please. About 2 weeks. Yeah, because it's a natural product. It does tend to go a bit funky after that time, but yeah. So it's in a salted brine. So that what the liquid it's in is salt and water. So that helps it preserve, obviously. One more in the middle there. And it's also becomes the carrier for these other things. So I've got herbs, I've got rosemary, peppercorns, native peppercorns, calendula flowers, garlic flowers, sort of a lot of things, flavourings you can put into the brine. Okay, lovely. So, I'll just hold this up. Okay, so that's what we've got in there at the moment, okay? Yes, I do see that. And now lid back on. And that's going to let the sauce sort of infuse into those mozzarella balls in the 10 minutes we've got left, okay? Now this fig pasta sauce is becoming a sauce now, so it's becoming saucy, it's not figs anymore, okay? And that's what we want. That would usually take a lot less time, but just because of today's funny burner. But usually that's a 10-minute dish, you know? Very good one to know. Maybe we can get the toast on now, if you like. Okay. Now, let's put some salt in there to season that. You know, traditionally, well, not that this is a traditional dish, maybe if I wasn't vegan, I'd put parmesan in this. That's where we need to make up our salt with, because parmesan particularly is very sharp, very full of salt. And also some nutritional yeast. There it is, yeah, thank you. Now, we all know about nutritional yeast, I'm sure. Very, very useful thing. I like to go very heavy-handed with it. It's going to just add such a lovely, another flavour level to this sauce. And I can smell that working already. So that's basically done now, which is really good timing. Just have a taste. Get more salt. Remember, figs are so sweet. We need to balance that out like we would with cheese. Okay. Taste. Okay, yum. So I put the basil in right at the end. I'll just save a little bit from top. And I can turn the heat off now. I just want the basil to just infuse through the sauce, but it doesn't really need to cook as such. It'll just go all brown and doesn't need to cook, just needs to toss through. Okay, and now I'm going to put my pasta, my dressed pasta, which has actually cooled down a bit more than I would have liked. Would have liked to put it straight in our thing it allowed. That's going to go through the sauce. Just breaking it up a little as it goes in. Don't want any clumps. Now, get it through that sauce. Actually, might just take a little bit of that pasta out. I want to be able to taste the sauce, not just for pasta. So just make sure it's really evenly distributed, that sauce through. Okay, and then finish off with those dry roasted pine nuts. And a bit of, it's a bit fresher, a bit more fresh basil on top. And again, just tear it up nice and small. Okay, and that's done as well, so we're very nearly there. Okay, so maybe we'll get you all to come up in a moment, and if you'd like to serve yourself, it's a better grip. You can all have a taste. Probably have to do that now.